Good Monday morning to you. Today, I'm really excited. We're going to be announcing a couple of new free resources that we are putting out into the world to help you understand some budgeting things for your startup apparel brand. Before we get started, I wanted to kind of just, if you didn't watch last week's episode of Money Mondays, you might want to go back and watch because I talked a little bit about the information that is out in the world right now. People kind of sharing with you that you could probably start a brand with $10,000 or less. And we really wanted to debunk that because we don't believe that that is actually true. Or if it is true, we don't think that you're going to see the kind of growth and profitability that you really are going to want for your brand. So, what we've done is we've started putting together some more robust budgeting tools for you to actually understand what you do need to start with and also how to break down your budget during basically every single year in your business so that as you work toward mass amounts of profitability, you understand like the percentages that you should be spending on team versus taxes versus paying yourself and all other kinds of things. So we have those new resources for you. If you go to thebusinessofapparel.com/pie, we are giving you a bunch of different pie charts and breakdowns that are going to be helping you understand how to break down your budget. And then there is an ebook that goes along with it if you'd like to get your hands on that, that is going to give you more information on the number that we suggest you start with when you are starting to think about starting an apparel brand. And then how to literally break down your money year by year by year for the first 10 years of your business. So, like, what are you spending on inventory versus what are your sales goals every single quarter? And then what are you spending on essentially everything else like team, taxes, and business expenses? So, that is available for you now. Again, you can go to thebusinessofapparel.com/pie. But I want to, before I reveal kind of that first number, and you might have heard it before because we've been sharing this number in a multitude of different ways. I've been talking about it on the podcast. I've been talking about it on other people's podcasts. If you listen to Heidi Weinberg's or So Heidi's podcast, we just had that come out recently too, where we talked all about this. I want to just give a shout out to a couple of key people who really helped me understand that the research that we were doing was very, very accurate. So first of all, I want you to know that we talked to a lot of different brand owners as we were starting to do this research. And something that came back time and time again was that even though they felt like they could start with a small amount of money, they didn't need to save a whole ton up front. They ended up finding out through the process that they were indeed spending a lot of money. And the brands who even like we talked to a woman the other day who said like, I didn't have a marketing team. I didn't have a sales team. I was leaning 100% on my factories to do all my product development for me, which, as you guys know, I always recommend is a bad idea. You don't want your factory to own your product creation process for you. It eliminates you from the ownership and the legal ownership of your product. But I digress. She said at the end of the day, she thought she was going to get away with a few $1,000s. She ended up spending $50,000. She used all of her savings on that. And now she doesn't even have a sales team or a marketing team to help her sell the stuff. And so those kinds of conversations are happening a lot. The other side of the coin, we hear from a lot of different brand owners that like, they don't know how to save money in a great way, or they don't know how much to save. So they start with a business loan, or they start with an investor, or they start with a partner who can help fund something, but they don't have a strategy on how to make profits. So they start with this great amount of money up front, but there's no strategy then behind it of like what kind of inventory they're purchasing, what are their sales goals, what kind of things are they then spending that money on to actually see growth, profitability, and the kind of money that they want to be bringing in for the brand in a certain amount of time. So those are very, very common conversations that we're having. I want to do a really great shout out to Andrew Dragola at Apparel Mark, who has had some really, really open, honest conversations with me from like business owner to business owner. We've been talking a lot about like what it takes to support brand owners who are trying to start an apparel brand. And when we were talking a couple of years ago, we kind of had landed on a number of about $150,000 was really a minimum of what you should have to start your brand. And that at first felt crazy. And so we didn't actually put pen to paper on that for a little while. But then I had the amazing opportunity of having Kelly Roach on my podcast as well. And she started her own brand. Now, Kelly Roach is a powerhouse in the business world. She owns multiple brands. A lot of them are 7 and 8 or 9-figure brands. Like she's on her way to building this amazing business portfolio. She is someone with business acumen that I go learn from on a weekly basis. Like she is one of my business coaches, and I value her opinion so much because I know that she is out there doing the legwork every single day, and she owns an apparel brand. And so one of the things that we talked about a lot on that podcast episode was how much she spent up front. And she brought up the number of $250,000. And so that was when my brain kind of started to churn on like, okay, we're landing in these big numbers. Like we're talking about 6 figures for people to save to really need to be able to build their business. And so I went to work in this monster, ridiculous spreadsheet that I have. Is basically my brain, the numbers in my brain on paper. And so I started to map out what it looked like to start a brand with just $10,000. So if you're getting the advice out there to start your brand with just $10,000, I want you to know that it took over a decade to even reach $1 million. And if you're in the entrepreneurial world, you might have heard that a brand owner or a CEO who owns a 6-figure company is a poor brand owner or CEO, because the amount that you're able to pay yourself as a brand owner or CEO when you're only making 6 figures is not very much. Not that it's good advice for you to like just stay at corporate if you feel like you need to like be bringing in big amounts of money, because I think over time you can get there. And I think there are tax advantages to owning a business, and there's all that kind of stuff. But some people will say, like, if you're leaving corporate to start a brand and you don't have goals to make a 7-figure or bigger company, like you might as well not even bother, because you're never going to be able to really bring home the kind of income that you expect if you're building a big enough business and you want to have team, you want to have people to really help you like build this and grow this. Obviously there are people out there maybe who are saying like, well, I'm just a freelancer, so every dollar that I bring in actually comes to me, which is great. And that's how I started Unmarked Street. I started Unmarked Street that way, thinking like every single dollar that I make this month is going to go straight toward me and my family. And I could have capped that, right? I could have said, once I get to a point where I'm working 40 hours a week freelancing, like I'm just going to stop there. But for me, at least, when I started getting a lot of work on my plate, it was very apparent that I needed to have a team. I needed to have people supporting me, helping me with the client work, because otherwise I wasn't going to be able to do it all myself. You could not market yourself. You could not try to sell your services on a certain basis. But I will say, if you're relying solely on referrals, you're going to come to a point where your referral network base is going to like not dry up, but it's not going to be sending you stuff on in the same way that it kind of does at the beginning. So you will come to a point where you're going to need to figure out sales, and you're going to need to figure out marketing. And if you can't do all of that yourself, you're going to need to have a team, which means that you need to be bringing in more than what you're actually just needing to bring in to pay yourself and feel like you have a good income for your family and all of that good stuff. So anyway, I digress. I kind of went way off on a tangent there, but we started to work on like, what would it look like to start with just $10,000? The profitability wasn't there fast enough. So then we kind of went on the opposite end of the spectrum. Okay, what if we fundraised like $5 million? Okay, not a lot of people can do that. So we really wanted to take that down to like, okay, what is the bare minimum? Like if we start in this like 150 to 250 range that we had been hearing from other experts in the industry that we've been having these great discussions with, if we start there, like what is the minimum amount that we feel like we can start with to have the right team on board and to be able to buy the right amount of inventory to propel profitability quickly? What was that number? And that number that we landed on was $200,000. And that might sound like a lot. And we've talked about that on our multiple platforms too, that $200,000 might sound like a lot of money that you need to save or that you need to raise. But number one, I think you're really going to take your brand a lot more seriously if you like hit the ground running with a big amount of money up front. And number two, if you go and check out like the resources that we've just put up on our website for you, and let's say you get into the ebook, if you understand how it all works, if you spend your money the way that we're suggesting that you spend your money, you make sales the way that we're giving you sales goals every single year and every single quarter of those years, if you are able to do all of that work, you will only need to raise that money once. Now, I talked about this on Heidi's podcast. it's all beautiful on a spreadsheet, right? Like I have no negative numbers on the spreadsheet. So if you save $200,000, 100,000 is going to go toward your inventory purchases in the first year. 100,000 is going to go toward hiring a team in your first year. And then by the end of year one, you're actually going to be in enough profitability that you're going to be able to then propel your own business forward with it. Of course, again, that's all on a very pretty spreadsheet where I was able to judge every single number so that I didn't have a single negative number. We never went into debt on the spreadsheet. We never spent more than we had in the bank on the spreadsheet. But that means that you're hitting all of those sales goals, which means you probably need a really good salesperson and a really good marketing team for your brand. It also means that you're not actually spending more or less than we suggest in the spreadsheet, because the profits that you need to make off of a certain purchase order amount is what's going to help get you to the next purchase order. And so if you're not actually spending that exact amount, you might be spending too much, which means that you are going to go in the negative. You're going to go in a little bit of debt. Or it might mean that you're spending not quite enough, which means that you're not bringing in enough inventory to sell to then make the amount of profits that you need for the next round. So it's of course, it's a very tricky balance between all of that stuff. There's very clear lines in there on like what you should be spending on team and business expenses. And so you need to keep those business expenses low even in the first year so that you are like you're spending that $100,000 that you've saved and put toward team and put toward those business expenses, but then those profits are going to need to work for you. And if you're spending too much on team or on travel or on other things for your business, it's not going to work. So we've put this together for you. We would love to share it with you. It is an amazing starting point, but I want you to understand that while the numbers work logistically on a static spreadsheet, businesses are very, very dynamic. So this is a starting point for you. You can understand how it all works. You can come work with us. We're happy to support you in understanding how all of it works. But at the same time, if you're not able to hit those sales goals, if you can't spend that much on inventory, if you can't sell fast enough, if your manufacturer can't get you goods fast enough, all of that stuff is going to play a part. So I just want to throw that out there. We've put together like an ideal scenario for you, and you can see that on paper. But it does require you to start with $200,000, and it means that you are hiring a good team to come in and support you. It also means that you are going to have to hold people accountable to hitting KPIs, key performance indicators, every single quarter of every single year. You are going to need to be a leader. So there are a lot of different elements to this, but we wanted to put this together for you so that you could see how following this kind of plan will actually get you to 7 figures within your first 6 years, and it will get you to 4 million within your first 11 years. So year one definitely is that spending year, right? Like you've taken all these savings, you're spending. And now for the next 10 years, you use your profitability to continue to grow and buy more inventory, bring in more profits so that you get to that point where you're, and 5 years after year one, you're actually into that 7 figures that you want to be at as a brand owner. And you're into $4 million after 11 years. And those are the kinds of numbers that we want to start seeing for our clients and for brands that are out there, because, that's the kind of stuff that's just going to help you to propel and grow even faster and further. A lot of it's exponential, right? I'm sure you've heard of compounding interest. Like all of it is exponential. The more money that you start to make with your profits, the more that you can spend on purchase orders, the more that you can make with the additional profits. So all of it takes a little bit of time. It does take some big money up front if you're being serious about it. And so come over to thebusinessofapparel.com/pie. You can check out the resources yourself. If you have any questions about it, put them below in the comments. We would love to answer them for you. And thank you so much for being here with me today. I will see you next week.